Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Future of BizTech. I'm your host, JC Granger. I have with me here Mark Testoni, the CEO of SAP National Security Services, also known as SAP NS2. Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me and the audience a little bit about who you are and what it is that your company does?
JC, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you so much for having me on. SAP, I think a lot of your listeners may have heard of SAP. It's a global software company that really pioneered what we now call ERP, or really how you run the back office of software commercially. But that was kind of our mother's SAP and where it began. SAP is now very much a global software company. It's very much focused, like all of us are, on information. SAP NS2, or National Security Services, we're actually an independent company of SAP whose original charter was to do national security work in the US environment. SAP is a German company, so they had to set up a special arrangement to do this kind of work because it's foreign owned. But really much more, as we've watched national security evolve over the last few years, it's far beyond what we would traditionally say defense and government kinds of things, more into the critical infrastructure. So we do a lot of work. We support SAP customers across a full panoply of things like financial services, utilities, and other. A lot of it's really focused now on the information aspects. How do we help companies use information to their advantage?
Very cool. Now, you'll have to forgive me. I'm a tech guy. I was born and raised in the Bay Area. I was hacking AOL when I was 12. Like, I was that kid, right? Yeah. And I'll admit right now, I do not know what SAP stands for. I don't, and I know that it's a German company, but is it a German name? I mean, when someone asks me, I'm like, ah.
Well, that makes two of us, actually, Jason. Seriously, SAP originally is an abbreviation or an acronym for a German language that means application programming, effectively, right? Because that's really what the core of the company was around application programming and where it started. And if you think about what it does today, most of the Fortune 500 companies and many tens of thousands of companies around the world run their platforms to do the business of finance and logistics, supply chain, and human capital. But we obviously now, because as we've seen through social media and many other things, information is really the key. These systems generate a lot of information. So how do we capture it? Not only that, and combine it with other information to really leverage it into something that's usable at speed of thought for end user companies.
So let's backtrack a little bit here. SAP is a platform. We know that. Is your company a platform also, or is it a service that attaches? What do you guys have your own platform that hooks into it? What is it that? What do you do to help companies specifically? Like, what does that look like when they engage you guys?
Really good question, JC. So we are, in a sense, we are a deliverer of SAP capabilities for a certain market space, but we've also evolved over time. That's where we started. So we actually have platforms of our own and intellectual property of our own that we render in combination often with SAP solutions to deliver something for a customer. Security is in our name. So many of our customers, whether they're government or in utilities or financial services, are looking for a different layer of security than the typical commercial, right? Because of the nature of what they do. And it's not that the normal security is bad, but there's government standards and NIST and others that are promulgated. So what we've done is we've taken SAP solutions and some other company solutions now, and we've wrapped them in what our IP really is, which is a security and management and infrastructure plane that allows customers to get these capabilities in a little more secure environment through the cloud. Because as we've all heard in the last decade or so, the cloud is really the primary delivery agent, or one of the primary and continuing emerging delivery agents of capability. We've lived with it since the birth of the iPhone tremendously, or in the Android, as personal, in our personal lives. Everything we do, business is more and more moving in that same direction.
So let me ask you a question then. What types of companies specifically do you guys target for your services? For the audience listening, again, we have a lot of tech people, business professionals, CEOs, CTOs. So who listening would be like, hey, we should reach out to NS2 to see, what's going on. Like, I mean, how big is the company? What does it specialize in?
Okay, so we're nearly 1,000 people now. We have replicated basically a software company like SAP's in some ways, and even bigger. In some, I mean, I'm not bigger than SAP, but we've replicated a software company like that. So we have traditional customers like, for example, the intelligence community and the Department of Defense and other parts and organs of government. And we do the full panoply of services for them. But then we work with other customers that might be SAPs, where they have a longstanding relationship with SAP, say a utility, but they want, because of the nature of what they do, they want a higher level of government standard security wrapped around a cloud solution for human capital, or a financial services company, or a state and local government, or a healthcare providers. We have some of those. We have pharma companies. So these are companies that tend to be more in the regulated space.
Okay, got it.
That much more scrutiny from than say perhaps a retailer might be.
Sure. So these are going to be the larger companies, like you said, healthcare, maybe companies like maybe Equifax or something. Has a lot of personal data.
That's a financial company that a customer of ours, that, to my knowledge right now, but they could be. And I'm reticent to name customer names because I haven't talked to them.
That's okay.
But it's giving you some idea. So, and these are companies of all sizes. We work with some of the very biggest aerospace and defense contractors, for example, which are huge companies. And then we have smaller companies as well, or smaller state and local government, because they're looking to have more reduce the risk aperture around the cyber threat. And that's largely what we exist to do, is deliver those kinds of things. And
so really, it sounds like they need to meet two requirements. They have to be an SAP, user, company, and they need a higher level of security than comes standard, essentially. Is that?
Well, the second one is probably the most important. Started to march off with we're working with a couple of companies now, other companies, what we call third parties, that we're bringing them. We've built this great intellectual property, this great cloud infrastructure that manages our manages all this for a customer, so we can render this more secure cloud solution. We're starting to bring on third party products onto this platform to work with us, so they're not just all SAPs. And that's really where our business is beginning to expand. We still do a lot and we'll continue to grow in the SAP ecosystem as a value-added deliverer. But I view the third-party products that we're working with, one of the companies I mentioned by the name of GoSecure, they're in the cyberspace. They ride on our platform. They were the first ones. We have a stack of 6 or 8 other small to mid-sized tech companies that are looking, because they can't make this big investment to create this security infrastructure to operate, say, in these spaces. So they're looking to leverage us, and we come up with a business arrangement to do that. And then the last piece of it is we're building some of our own product capability out now. And that's probably the most exciting part. And one of those products that we're building out is something called Cloud Mixer, which helps a customer manage its interactions with the cloud.
So it's more of a user-friendly, ground level interface, basically, so that they can pass it off to directors or managers. They can get in there and actually, instead of it being like this really big, clunky, top level thing. Is that kind of what you're trying to build out?
Well, what we're trying to build when it comes to Cloud Mixer is there are many companies out there that are embarked in the cloud, and they have to manage the cloud infrastructure. It's not just, oh, here's my keys and let me go run. If you're running on one of these cloud providers, if you manage it properly, you're going to generate a tremendous amount of cost, because you'll have users or administrators spinning up instances and buying services, and you don't have any visibility control, and all of a sudden your IT bill could get very substantial. So a piece of this is, how do I manage, if I'm working with an AWS or Azure or Google or one of the other ones, this tool, we use it internally, is to help manage the infrastructure. So we know how much we're using, how those resources are being applied, how much they cost. There may be buy decisions related to how long a commitment we want to make for price points. So there's things like that that are really important. And then there's a whole set of compliance things. I mentioned the things that we do around the government, NIST standards, things called FedRAMP in the federal government, and other things. we have all these things that help manage the compliance to make sure inside Cloud Mixer. So it's really a tool to manage the resources of the cloud to make sure you get the best bang for your buck.
Now, now that you, with the Cloud Mixer, does that allow smaller companies to have an inside track on what you guys do, so they don't have to be this giant healthcare company? Like, is it kind of bringing a little more to Main Street with Cloud Mixer?
That's very much true as well. You don't have to be one of our customers to leverage Cloud Mixer. We can actually render it to you against your own environment through the cloud, which is the beauty of the cloud. So let's say you're a small company and you're an AWS customer, or you're an Azure customer, and you started to do these things and you want to leverage this tool. We'll be out marketing it, or showing people how to do it. And one of the ways we're going to show them is our current customers were actually using it to manage their stuff. So it makes it very easy then to show them later how they can, we can extend that into their environment for other things that they were doing. Because most of our customers don't just operate, say, on our cloud. They could be operating on 365 doing this, or they could be on another company's cloud doing that, and we can help them manage all these resources this way.
Well, that's cool. And again, I really like when a company like yours, who typically, helps, the big enterprise level, finds a way to take something that they do to get it more down to that, Main Street kind of, smaller business. So for that, I commend you. I think that's really cool. And I mean, that's probably going to work out for you more long-term also, that kind of volume at that level. And then as those companies get bigger, they graduate into those higher tiers, I imagine.
JC, you make a really good point, because we can help companies of all sizes through this. And it's not just customers that need, say, a financial system, or they need a human capital system. The reason we're hosting other companies' products now is providers of software, they can't afford to build out, in many cases, all these smaller companies can't afford to build out all the security apparatus. Mm-hmm. So not only do smaller companies that are users want to likely come to us to use things like Cloud Mixer, but companies that have great software solutions but can't afford to put them in through government rigor. Mm-hmm. To meet all these alphabet soups of standards, for many of them, as you've probably, the names even will make your head spin. Wow. We help on both sides of that, whether it's Cloud Mixer or just providing our infrastructure. But Mixer itself will help, users of the cloud manage their cloud either with us or their own separate instances better. That's our goal. We think there's a real market need, because not only does it handle resourcing, it's financial, and it's also compliance. So we've brought all these things together in one capability. Well,
I like the compliant part, because I've had clients in regulated industries, and it's such a massive part of what they do. So that sounds like it's really helpful. Let's switch gears. I'm going to go to a personal question for you. Yep. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Right, like when you grew up, so to speak. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? And then how did that life path take you to starting this company, right? So I'm more curious, just kind of what little Mark wanted to be, and then what made you want to start this company specifically?
JC, that's a good question, because I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Wait, are you still growing up? Are you still growing up? Is that
still growing up, and I've been around a long time. It's funny, when I was a kid, I think we all had our aspirational dreams to be whatever we thought we were going to be great at, a professional athlete or whatever. None of those things ever come true. I was a little bit aimless when I was younger. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself, and it was just one of those things. I had dreams, but I'm not sure they were ever realistic. And like many of my generation, kind of trudged through high school, which I did without a whole lot of grandeur, and then off to college, but I dropped out a few times and kind of got lost. So I went into the military, and it really helped me find my path. I had a little detour prior to that. I was a janitor in a high school. My dad found me a job while I was transitioning. And so I started off kind of literally at the bottom.
That literal bottom, yeah.
The literal bottom of the rung, but I learned how to show up to work on time. I learned how to push a broom. I learned how to do what I was told. And I was successful at it, and it helped started to build confidence in me. And so then when I got off, I got into college finally and realized, I like business and financial management. I was in the military, and so I ultimately took an accounting path and became a CPA and some other things. Didn't really do much for me in the military, but always loved working with people, and it's kind of evolved over time. And although the people look younger than they did back then, I've had a measure of success because I've been able to connect, I think, with people of all ages and generations and backgrounds to do great things. And together we've done great things, and kind of led me down to this path somehow. But I would say, tell your younger listeners or viewers is, you always want to have some kind of a plan, but never let the plan become, a constrictor to you. Because I've had to make some decisions during my life where I took the off-beaten path, and it actually was good for me because my gut told me to do it. So, I don't know how I got there, but like I said, hopefully life isn't a destination, it's a journey, and I'm still on the journey somewhere.
Yeah, no, I like that answer. All right, we're going to switch over now back to the company. Well, actually, one is going to be like kind of an opinion question. So, the podcast is called the Future of BizTech. So I like to ask things about what's coming. So there's a two-part question here. The first part of the question is, where do you see your industry? So your company and other companies that, work either off the SAP platform or do services for those companies that use it, or work in the defense arena for security. Where do you see that industry going in the next 5-10 years? Do you see like AI playing a big part, or regulations getting tighter or looser? Like, where do you see the industry as a whole going? And then the second part of the question is, where is NS2 going, right? Where are you guys going to be? And is there anything coming out soon that our audience could get a quick little preview of? So yeah, so where's the industry going, and where are you guys going?
So again, great question. So the industry, when you look at industry in general, I'll kind of break it into two parts: tech and the defense space. I think what we're going to see, and you've heard this signaled, and I've been beating this drum for more than a decade, or maybe for 20 or 30 years, and nobody listened. But I think we're going to see this actually, and you're starting to see it come out of the administration. You saw it in some of the last. Government and commercial, and when I'm talking about commercial industry, the tech industry, have got to become more collaborative, both to develop and meet the threats. And when I mean the threats, the global threats here are peer competitors, the Chinese particularly, and others. We have to work together better to do that. For too long, government has kind of largely controlled and built its own capabilities, whether it's in cyber or IT. They've built their own, and there's always been this kind of rough relationship. We have got to make that relationship better. It is imperative for us to meet the cyber threat that we face today. And I cannot say that strong. And I think it's going to begin to happen. We're some of the words that have come out of everywhere, from the Office Director of National Intelligence to the President himself, leads me to believe it's a process, not an event. We're going to get there. We see and been feeling it over the last few years that there is more opportunity. AI is central to so many things. I mean, it's in our lives already. It's so central to that. It's going to be hugely central to conflict in the future. And conflict in the future may not be kinetics like the wars of the past. It's more about control of the information flow and who has the insights and the information. And that's what we're really battling some of our peers for right now. And they have very specific plans. So I sense that kind of the defense industry is headed for more collaboration. And I'm talking about with the tech industry, not just the traditional providers around the Department of Defense. Mm-hmm. That's going to be. Secondly, on technology itself, I think in the next 15 years, what you and I saw from 2007, say, when the smartphone came about to now, we're going to see double the change with 5G and what's going to be happening around us. Okay?
Yeah, 5G is going to be huge. How do you see 5G integrating into the industry or your company?
Well, first of all, it's just going to be critical to everything. When you think about it from pure defense, I mean, we're going to have robotics. We already have robotics even operating today inside companies, factories, even for a long time. But I mean, we're actually going to have robotics potentially on the battlefield. They're already working on these things, right? To the extent that they would ever be needed. But beyond that, we're just going to have the concept of distributed tech again. When you think about the last 30 years of the internet, what have we done? We've consolidated a lot of information and systems, right? 5G, what does it do beyond some cool things for a smartphone and speed? The speed is going to allow us to redistribute the internet again. There's going to be opportunity for security around that. There's opportunity and threats around that. But all this stuff that's going to be operating, whether it's autonomous vehicles or potentially distant surgical procedures or 1,000 other use cases that you've probably talked about in your program, all is going to require an ability to manage and secure all that, those local to national networks to be able to handle that. That excites me. I think it's going to change our lives much like the smartphone has. The second piece of that is I think we're going to see what we've gotten as individuals, the cool things we can do every day to order and operate our lives, is going to transcend from not just the personal lives into our business lives, right? Today in business, we still do a lot of things kind of in a clunky way, right? That's going to change. So I see those two things. Where's NS2 and all this? I go back to the idea of security, providing platforms to enable great applications to happen, whether they're SAP applications or third-party, other company applications or our own in NS2. Great opportunity for us, and we're going to be there trying to figure out where that puck's going to be so we can deliver those 5G-enabled solutions and be part of that calculus going forward.
Well, and that 5G, I kind of get this analogy in my head of, when cars got faster, they had to put in airbags, right? They had seatbelts, and then as speed increases, you have to compensate with safety, security, things like that, because the consequence of speed gone awry is just greater than if it's slower, right? So if something, 5G has that two-sided coin, right? If somebody infiltrates a network, they can get to other places and do damage 100 times faster on a 5G network than they maybe could something else. So I guess what you're saying, I like the fact that you guys are trying to create those airbags, I guess,
we're trying to help create those platforms. And here's the thing that's interesting about speed. 5G is about speed and pipe widths and all these. And again, because you think of what we're doing in the cell network, it also allows for the redistribution, right, of the data, which the speed of moving it back and forth is often a disabler, but speed like that also will lead to change in process, much like the smartphone led to change in the way we do things. It's not just, it's what the second and third order effects of speed will allow us to do. And like I said, in 2007, could you and I really imagine doing kind of this interactive discussion today, or getting on our phone and ordering something we do, or the information we can get? I don't think so, right? And so that to me is going to be, how does the world, social media was nothing back in those nascent Facebook and MySpace or whatever.
Infrastructure has changed, period, right?
It has.
So it's going to change again, like you said, with 5G, so you guys have to be there for it. So let me ask you another question here. So you guys have been around a while. When were you founded? What was what date, what was the year?
Kind of the core of it started in 2004, a very small organization, but it was accelerated when with SAP's acquisition of Sybase back in 2010, 11. That's when we became what we are today.
So how have you grown over time, and more recently too? So I'm a marketing guy by trade, right? So I have an agency. We do B2B tech stuff. So this always makes me, my tail wags and my ears perk up when I get to talk a little bit of marketing. So how are you guys getting the word out, other than obviously doing podcasts like this? That's one way, right? That's a PR angle, obviously. But what else are you guys doing internally so that the right types of people, whether it be government agencies, local municipalities, big pharma, or something like that, what are you guys doing so that they know that you even exist, to get your services?
It's an important question to what we do. So there's probably, it's a multi-channel question. So we're doing everything from educating, say, the people inside of the bigger SAP who often have customers that need our services.
Yeah, they have a preferred vendor network now. That I know too.
And we're kind of one of those
preferred ranks of that.
Well, and we are largely because we offer, their direct capabilities in a different environment. So and they have customers in those industries that need this, and they can position security, and sometimes it helps them competitively. So that's one track. We're doing it. We're upscaling what we do in the digital arena. I do an awful lot out trying to get, not only podcasts like this, but work in the press. We have the traditional, more direct marketing kinds of things. So we're trying to create a lot of buzz and awareness, but because security is becoming such an important thing, we're really attaching to that message because we think we have a lot to offer there. So we spend a lot of time working that. We have lots of events, but ultimately it comes down to a couple of things too. Your employees are your best ambassadors often. So sure, we're a great place to work where people have the opportunity to develop, and we think we're building that because of the growth we've had. And then, we want our customers to feel good about what they're getting from us, because often the word of mouth or the association with the customer base will often help. So the things that you would be aware of, we're attempting to do all of them. Some of them we do better than others. But as you know, marketing has changed so dramatically in the last 5 years. It's kind of shocking.
Oh, yeah.
The traditional players are not really the impact. And as we see, and we use the social media channel an awful lot now too, which I wonder how are we going to market, but we do tremendously. So
yeah, I joke around with people. I say, if I took 6 months off, I might as well retire because I wouldn't know anything.
I wouldn't even know anymore.
That's how fast it changes. I'd be in the dark at that point.
So
one last question here for you then. What is the best piece of advice either that you were ever given or that you can give the audience from your own wisdom and from, experience in what you've done all these years?
So I'll offer a couple of things. The first thing that I think has served me well, and I think has served a lot of people well, is be curious. Never lose your interest in asking the next question. And then the second piece would be bold. Don't ever miss an opportunity to do something. And I think the combination of those two things, sometimes we're afraid or we sense, maybe, change is hard, but sometimes we just have to take risks and be bold. And sometimes they pan out, but even if they don't pan out, we often learn from them and they'll help us later. Those things have served me particularly well over the years. They really have. So hopefully they'll be helpful to somebody else. And I guess the other thing I would say to young folks, do what you say you're going to do and try the right thing. It's those things sound so easy, but
they're hard.
Very hard in practice.
Yeah. Easy to say. Mark, thank you again so much for being on the show here. How can people find SAP NS2? How can they reach out to you personally if they wanted to? What kind of info can you give the audience?
Where the URL is, you can Google SAP NS2 and you'll find us. There's some other things you'll find us for sure. It's www.sapns2.com. We also have a nonprofit that we support that trains veterans. We take hard to employ veterans and train them in the IT business, often without college degree. That's called NS2 Serves, and that's at ns2serves.org. If you want to connect to me through the website or on Twitter or LinkedIn, I'm easily findable there if you search Mark Testoni.
Awesome. Well, again, Mark, thank you so much.
There's not many of us named Mark Testoni, by the way.
I imagine. And we got video here so people can look at the face and remember.
There you go. Oh, there's that bald guy again.
Yeah. Mark, thanks again for being on the show. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
JC, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.